So poll numbers for the president sagging, and now, as they say in the horror movies, the call is coming from inside the House. If the House is the Republican Party in this case, follow the metaphor. With us now, Chief Data Analyst Harry Enten. So there are some issues in his approval among Republicans. What do you see?
Yeah, okay. Why don't we talk about the key issue of inflation? You know, we're talking about houses, Johnny B and me. And what are we talking about? We're talking about a complete collapse of the floor. Look at this. Republicans' net approval of Trump on inflation. You know, you go back when he was running for re-election back in 2024 for term number one. Look at that net approval rating. It was plus 68 points in terms of how Republicans viewed inflation and Trump in term number one. Look at this. Look at this. Collapse. Minus 5 points. Now, this is just the Ipsos polling, I will note. But look at this. Even in Fox, he was at minus 2 points. So it's not alone. He is on the wrong side of the ledger. And this is not voters overall, let me remind you. This is Republican voters. That call absolutely coming from inside the House on the key issue of inflation. There are now multiple polls showing that Donald John Trump is underwater within his own Republican Party.
That's a 73-point swing. I just did the math right now.
That is 70 and 3, and I actually drew that pretty gosh darn well.
All right, Harry, the phone is ringing.
Hello?
And someone's calling about gas prices.
Yes.
Who's calling and what are they saying?
It's Republicans who are calling again, and they are saying that they are underwater again when it comes to this particular issue. Look at gas prices. Okay, GOP, Trump net approval on fuel and gas prices. You go back to last summer, look at this. It was plus 51. Look at it now, minus 4. Again, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a 55-point shift away from the President of the United States on the key issue of gas prices. So on, again, something that is impacting Americans day to day. Inflation, a part of that is gas prices. Of course, the inflation on gas prices has been out of control. The President of the United States is underwater on the key issue of gas prices. This isn't just something about the center of the electorate. This is with Donald Trump's base as well. This is a huge shift. He's underwater again, the floor completely collapsing underneath.
And this is just within the last year. That's a one-year shift, not even from before the election.
This is a one-year shift. It turns out as gas prices go high, your approval ratings go low, even within the Republican base.
Okay, but how much do Republicans really care about these economic issues?
Yeah, okay, so you know we're talking about the collapsing floor, but you know if this is an old ruddy house that we don't really care about, then who really cares? But this is the house that is most important because you take a look here, okay, Republicans' top issue, the economy and the cost of living. You know, you go back to the beginning of this year, it was 43% it was the top issue. Now it's even more of the top issue. The clear majority of Republicans saying the economy and the cost of living is the number one issue, an issue on which Donald Trump's numbers are absolutely falling through the floor with multiple polls showing him underwater on inflation.
A creaky floor.
A very, very creaky floor.
Harry, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
According to AAA, the price of gas is $4.49 this morning. That's still up more than $1.50 since the war began. But according to President Trump and members of his administration, those prices are going to come down quickly as soon as the war is over.
Once the national security objectives of Operation Epic Fury are fully achieved, Americans will see oil and gas prices drop rapidly.
We promise that when this conflict draws to a close, when this operation draws to a close, we're going to see those energy prices come back down to reality.
Oh, they would go down quite a bit. You know, if we see a pathway to have the Straits of Hormuz open soon and energy flowing again, you'd see energy prices drop pretty significantly. Prices have likely peaked, and they'll start going down. Certainly with a resolution of this conflict, you'll see prices go down. Prices across the board on energy prices will go down.
The gas will go down. As soon as the war's over, it'll drop like a rock. It's going to come tumbling down. There is so much oil out there. It's pent up. It's locked up in the Strait of Hormuz. When all of that stuff comes out, you're going to see prices dropping on gasoline like you've never seen.
But I am also confident on the other side of this, prices are going to come down very quickly.
They'll drop lower than they were before. As soon as it's over, you're going to see gasoline and oil drop like a rock. You're going to see oil prices plummet. They're going to come down.
All right, CNN Business senior reporter David Goldman is here to make it make sense. David, today's question, what actually needs to happen for prices to go down?
Yeah, that's a great question, because if they're going to drop like a rock, you're going to have to see a tremendous amount of action in the oil market. we'll see if that's actually the case. So what does need to happen for oil to come down? Well, the first thing that you need is to clear out this bottleneck. So in the Strait of Hormuz right now, there are about 170 tankers that are there, and they're each carrying around 100 million barrels of oil, and that's a lot of oil. That's not just, a kind of pretend number. That's about 13 days worth of the oil that has been stuck, because we've had 13 million barrels of oil that are just stuck in the Strait of Hormuz right now. So that's a decent amount of oil, but imagine getting all of that out of the strait that's mined, that's been an active war zone. That's not something that can just get out all that quickly. Okay, that's step one. Step two, you got to get rid of all the warehoused oil. You have oil that's just overflowing right now in storage. All of that needs to get onto new empty tankers. So what happens next? Well, oil production needs to restart. This is very, very difficult. It's not just like flipping on a light switch. You actually need to start sending water and gas down into wells. And if you do that, you might have a neighboring well that has to do the exact same thing. And you need to make sure that that is all coordinated. That can take 2 to 4 weeks just to get production started again. After all of that is done, you need to fix your facilities, because so much of them have blown up literally in the war, particularly the largest LNG port, the largest liquefied natural gas port in the world. That's going to take about 2 years to come back online. That's no joke. That needs to come back online very soon. Okay, so how long is it going to be before we actually start to see some relief? Look at this. This is where we were before the war started. This is where we are right now. There's a huge amount of time that it's going to take, according to the futures market, before we get back down to that sub $70 an oil level. Look at this, 2032. So you want $3 gas again, you're gonna have to wait maybe 6 years. And so what does that mean for everything? Look at this. Produce, clothing, airfare, gas, shipping, all of these rely on high gas prices, high oil prices. All of them are going to continue to be more expensive as long as this lasts.
I'm sorry, did I hear you correctly? Did you say 2032?
Yeah, so if you look at this, this tells you what the oil market is predicting prices will be in the future. We don't get back down to this level until 2032. That's the prediction. We'll see if that ends up being the case. But this is how you make $3 gas. It's going to be a while.
A roller coaster ride on the oil markets. Brent crude dropped huge on Monday, but today, global oil prices are on the rise after those fresh strikes in southern Iran. CNN's Matt Egan is here with me now. We saw this big drop, and then that's changed.
Yeah, well, Sarah, I think that reflects concern over those new strikes last night on Iran by U.S. forces. That really underscores the fragile nature of this ceasefire and does help explain why, after plunging about 10% yesterday, Brent is back on the rise. Now, WTI, the U.S. benchmark, is down about 4% from Friday's close, so down, but not dramatically lower. And again, I think that reflects concern about those U.S. strikes and the fact that, listen, even if there's a deal today, there's a certain amount of damage that has already been done because the Strait of Hormuz has been closed now since late February, right? We're talking about an estimated 1.2 billion barrels of oil that has been derailed out of the Middle East because of the war. And this is coming at a really sensitive time because we have demand on the rise here in the U.S., in Europe, and elsewhere. you also have supplies coming down, right? That is never a good combination. Now, the good news, though, is that gas prices, they are ticking lower, right? The new national average, $4.49 a gallon, down about 2 cents just from yesterday. Of course, that is well above the pre-war level of $2.98 a gallon. And when we look at the trend for gas prices, there was obviously this massive spike just as the war began, but gas prices have kind of leveled out here around $4.50 a gallon. I think the bad news is there's no sense yet that the worst is over here, right? I talked to Bob McNally, veteran energy analyst, and he told me he still thinks that Brent oil futures are going to go back up to $120, $130 a barrel. And he thinks that gas prices in the U.S. could still challenge that all-time high from 2022 of $5.02 a gallon, right? I think what the market really wants to see, including the stock market, they really want to see actual proof that there's a deal, that both sides are truly agreeing to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and then proof, right? Proof that oil flows are actually returning. And until that happens, we're going to be in a pretty uncertain and dangerous spot when it comes to energy prices. And it does still look like we're looking at high gas prices this summer. Sarah?
What is wild here that we just have to mention is like the Dow is at 50,000 plus. And yes, it's just ticked up a bit, but the two things don't always match, right? The way that people are feeling, having to pay for extra gas, and what's happening in the market. But let's talk tech, right? That is in the end.
People are feeling the high gas prices. The market cares about the AI boom.
Matt, it's good to have you here to explain all of this madness.